Hi, class. So in this last part of Chapter 7, we're going to summarize all the three types of international arbitrage and also interest rate parity. We will also look at some of the related practice problems. Okay, the first type of international arbitrage is locational arbitrage. It may occur if foreign exchange quotations differ among banks. The act of locational arbitrage should force the foreign exchange quotations of banks to become realigned, and locational arbitrage will no longer be possible. So if we see the foreign exchange rate different among different banks, we could buy at the bank of the lower rate and sell at the bank with the higher rate, right? And in this way, the price difference will eventually go away. So you would see similar quotations among different banks due to the locational arbitrage. For the triangular arbitrage, it is related to cross-exchange rates between two foreign currencies. Okay, the cross-exchange rates between the two currencies has to be consistent with the exchange rate of the two currencies respectively when each of them is compared to US dollars. A cross-exchange rate between two currencies is determined by the values of these two currencies with respect to a third currency. Usually we say this third one is US dollars. If the actual cross-exchange rate of these two currencies differ from the rate that should exist, triangular arbitrage is possible. The act of triangular arbitrage should force the cross-exchange rates to become realigned, at which time triangular arbitrage will no longer be possible. So when the cross-exchange rates between the two foreign currencies is consistent with the exchange rate of each currency with US dollar, there will be no triangular arbitrage opportunity. Otherwise, we could make some riskless profits out of the difference. The third type of international arbitrage is covered interest arbitrage. It is based on the relationship between the forward rate premium and the interest rate differential. The size of the premium or discount exhibited by the forward rate of a currency should be about the same as the differential between the interest rates of the two countries of concern. Okay, so this is telling us P, the forward rate premium, should be equal to IH minus IF, home interest rate minus foreign interest rate. Okay, so this is the interest rate parity case in theory. In general terms, the forward rate of the foreign currency will contain a discount or premium if its interest rate is higher or lower than the US interest rate. So we would have a forward rate discount if the foreign interest rate is higher than US interest rate. Okay, so P would be negative if IF is higher than IH. And forward premium is positive. We have a premium if IF is lower than the I home. Okay, but however, if IRP condition doesn't hold, if the forward premium deviates substantially from the interest rate differential, okay, if P is different from IH minus IF, then covered interest arbitrage is possible. In this type of arbitrage, a foreign short-term investment in a foreign currency is covered by a forward sale of that foreign currency in the future. In this manner, the investor is not exposed to fluctuations in the foreign currency's value. Okay, if IRP does not hold and we have a covered interest arbitrage opportunity, for example, if the point is to the right-hand side of the line where P is larger than IH minus IF, meaning we can make potentially more by invest in a foreign currency. We could exchange our US dollar to the foreign currency and invest in the foreign bank with the higher interest rates. And also we want to purchase a forward too. Okay, so we make sure we can sell the foreign currency back when the time matures and exchange the foreign currency back to US dollar. And we want to avoid the exchange rate risk that the value of the foreign currency might go down in the future when the time matures. Okay, so for covered interest arbitrage, we invest in the foreign market. We also purchase a forward. Okay, or I could say I sell a forward of the foreign currency, so we could exchange foreign currency back to US dollar in the future at a locked rate. Okay, so we could buy a forward of the US dollar in the future or sell a forward of the foreign currency in the future. Lastly, okay, interest rate parity, IRP, is a theory that states that the size of the forward premium or discount P should be equivalent or equal to the interest rate differential between the two countries of concern. P is equal to IH minus IF. When IRP exists, covered interest arbitrage is not feasible because any interest rate advantage in the foreign country will be offset by the discount on the forward rate. Okay, when this equation holds, we don't have covered interest arbitrage anymore. You could probably make more because of the higher interest rate in the foreign country, but you lose some money because the difference in forward and spot rates. Okay, so the gain and the cost offset each other, and you're gonna make same money, just invest in the domestic market. Thus, the act of covered interest arbitrage would generate a return that is no higher than what would be generated by a domestic investment. Because the forward premium of a currency from a US perspective is influenced by the interest rate of that currency and the US interest rate, and because those interest rates change over time, okay, because in the condition of IRP, P equals IH minus IF, and because IH and IF, they could both change, so the forward premium P will change over time as well. Thus, the forward premium P may be large and positive in one period when the interest rate of that currency is relatively low. Okay, when IF is low, then IH minus IF could be larger, right? So P is larger. But it could become negative, reflecting a discount if that interest rate rises above the US interest rate. So P could be negative. There is a forward discount when IF is larger than IH, right? So IH minus IF would become negative. Okay, so that's our summary. Let's look at a practice problem here. If interest rate parity exists, then what is not feasible? A, forward realignment arbitrage. B, triangular. C, covered interest. D, locational. Of course, we should choose C here. Covered interest arbitrage is not feasible when we have interest rate parity. Another practice on interest rate parity. Assume that US interest rate is 10%, while the British interest rate is 15%. If interest rate parity exists, then what happens here? Okay, you can try to pause the video now and think about these 4 options. I will also leave 10 to 30 seconds here to give you time to think about this question before we discuss solutions. All right, so I'm gonna go to the next slide discussing each of the 4 options and also the answer. So if you need more time thinking on these 4 options, you can keep pausing the video now and resume the video once you finish. But if you're ready, let's look at the next slide. Okay, same question here. We know US interest rate is 10%, British interest rate is 15%. So there is an interest rate differential here. However, we also know interest rate parity exists. Do you still recall what IRP means? It means our forward rate premium, P, equals to IH, the home US interest rate, 10%, minus the foreign interest rate, British interest rate, 15%. Okay, so P becomes negative 5%. There's a forward discount here. And in this case, covered interest rate arbitrage should not exist, okay, when IRP exists. The first option, A, says British investors who invest in the UK will achieve the same return as US investors who invest in the US. This is definitely wrong because British investors who invest in the UK, they will earn 15%, right? And US investors who invest in the United States, they would instead earn 10% return, right? So for both investors in the 2 countries, they earn actually different return. And because they do not have to exchange currencies, so they don't have to worry about the exchange rate or forward premium or discount. Okay, option B, US investors will earn a higher rate of return when using covered interest arbitrage than what they would earn in the United States. Okay, this is also wrong because in this case, IRP exists. That means if US investor invest in US, they earn 10%. If they invest in UK, even though the rate is higher as 15%, but because of the forward discount, okay, the final return of US investors would still be 10%. They will earn the same return if they use covered interest arbitrage compared to if they invest domestically in US. Option C, US investors will earn 15% whether they use covered interest arbitrage or invest in the US. Okay, this is also not right because they would earn 10%, the US interest rate, no matter if they invest in the US or use covered interest arbitrage. So D is right. The US investors will earn 10%, the domestic interest rate, no matter they use covered interest rate or not. No matter they use covered interest arbitrage or not. Okay, so when IRP, interest rate parity, exists, covered interest arbitrage is not feasible anymore because any interest rate advantage in the foreign country will be offset by the discount on the forward rate. Okay, so here, even though the foreign country, the British interest rate is higher, but there's also a forward rate discount. P equals negative 5%.